This BBC story in The Sun, the BBC were too quick to blame Israel for the hospital blast that now seems to have been a misfire from Hamas. Where does this fit into the broadcast ecology, Leo? That's what I want to know.
Well, yes, so the BBC, our state propagandist broadcaster, who repeatedly called for GBNews to be shut down, are accused of putting lives at risk after rushing to blame Israel for a hospital blast that killed 500. And killed 500 is in inverted commas because it's in doubt as well. And the PM has taken a jab. That's a jab at the BBC, not a booster shot.
No.
I'm sure he's
Which
had that
definitely worked, though.
Yeah, oh, they did. Oh, 100%, 100%.
That's why your baby's having them all.
She's not having the COVID one. But so the Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, today had a go at the BBC for putting out information saying that Israel was responsible for the strike on the blast at the hospital in Gaza without verifying the facts, which is strange because the BBC have their own BBC Verify service to verify facts. And Rishi Sunak also said, the BBC also had a go at the BBC saying the words that we say have impact. And yet the BBC immediately came out and said, you know, this is, and it's seen around the world, and it sort of validates it in the eyes of people around the world. It's something that used to be as reputable as the BBC saying, saying something, presenting something as fact, saying this was an Israeli airstrike. When, as we've seen, the evidence points to it not being an Israeli airstrike. There's the lack of the big crater, as we mentioned. There's the lack of structural damage. It seemed to be mainly a fire, as if it was rocket propellant and a rocket exploding in the car park. So yeah, this seems to be a lot of propaganda that the BBC just went for.
And is the cause? I mean, Cressida, the most generous thing I can think, maybe I said before, is that they were trying to get to the story quickly, or is it just this implicit anti-Israel bias that seems to be sneaking in?
I don't know. It could be a little from column A, a little from column B, couldn't it? I mean, I don't know. It does seem to fit with the approach they've taken thus far, I'll say that. And I don't know, you're talking about them having this sort of, like a brand that everybody believes in, but there's loads of evidence to say that they're on borrowed time, I think, the BBC. I was looking at a tweet today, Matt Goodwin had polled people to ask if they trust the BBC. And he's plotted that as the years go by, it started in the 80%, a few years later it's 61%. And this is only, like in the last 20 years. And it's now down to under half. Well, that was the last time we thought. The point is that the brand is losing losing its weight.
They've still got the name. It's kind of like you go and see the Beach Boys and it's just like one of them and he's 80. They haven't even got Brian Wilson who wrote all the songs. It still says BBC, so people still trust it.
They've got the guy who wrote Kokomo.
Yeah, exactly. But none of the actual hits, well, the actual good songs. But yeah, I mean, Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry said here, what is wrong with our national broadcaster? Has it been infiltrated by Islamists, which is a sort of satirical way of putting it, but it's more likely it's been infiltrated by decolonialists and sort of lefties who just can't help themselves. I mean, Corbyn was very quick, of course, to post that it was Israel, and actors was it Robert Lindsay was quick to post it, and you just go, why can't they just be a bit more moderate and a bit less reckless with what seems to be anti-Israel bias? Yeah,
and this is showing the sort of poison that lies behind all those nice terms that leftists use, like decolonialism, systemic oppression, all these things that, it looks like they're doing a good thing, are all used to justify, absolute barbarity and used to justify terrorism.
Yeah. And you know what, lastly on this, imagine if it was GBNews that did this. Everyone would be saying, shut it down. So, BBC, live by the sword, die by the sword. Let's